That's my why at the end of the day. That's it. Leaders who can make leaders who can make leaders. And if we're doing that, everything else will fall into place.
Today, I'm joined by Jeff Laethem, president of Ray Laethem Buick GMC. A medical emergency thrust Jeff into running a well-established Detroit dealership, but what he built over the next 30 years is both a cautionary tale and a blueprint for the next generation taking over the family business. A big thank you to our sponsors for making today's episode possible: Podium, Cox Automotive, and Nomad Content Studio. And now let's get into the show. Jeff Laethem on the CDG podcast. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to meet you in person.
There you go, in person, right? Sometimes people come on and they're like, I feel like I knew you already. I was like, well, that's the power of media.
Absolutely. I love it. I love watching the podcast. I'm always learning every day.
I know. Thank you, man. You mentioned you just had an injury. Are you good? Like hamstring, leg, or everything good there?
Yeah, they're still the MRIs this morning, and I got between a boat and a dock. Did something that I knew I shouldn't have done in the first place, and as I was doing it, it happened. But thankfully didn't hit my head, but did bruise my ego a little bit.
Oh man, effing boats. Where are you boating nowadays?
Well, right here in Grosse Pointe, Detroit, there's Lake St. Clair, and it's kind of the boating capital of the country. Actually, there's more registered boats around here than anywhere else in the country. So
you see now,
it's about a mile from the store.
I would have never imagined that. Isn't it like 0 degrees there in the winter?
Yes, it freezes over. All the boats come out of the water, and it's definitely. But we cherish the summer that much more. So everybody's on the water.
Yeah, you bring up a really interesting topic because I have a friend. I always have this conversation with one of my friends. Like, is it better to live somewhere where it's warm all year round, or seasons and all that? And at least I don't think I'm into the whole seasons thing. People tell me, oh, I want the seasons. I'm like, I don't give a shit about the seasons. Give me the warm. And my friend is like, no. He's like, trust me, you'll get sick of it. If you have it too much of the sun, you'll get sick of it. I think in life, it's hard to make decisions, or for most people, it's difficult to come to big changes or make decisions if there isn't a forcing function, right? If you move, like, there's a good reason typically. And I think I admire lots of people that have very high agency, that are able to make decisions in life and business and whatever, where, again, they maybe don't have to, but that proactivity, which I think you're someone that we'll have a great conversation about this today. I know you are just reading about the way you manage your store. It seems like there's a lot of proactivity into the culture. Your goal alignment system, the fact that you've literally, I'm reading my notes here, you've literally called yourself out on not internalizing, one of the core values of the company, and kind of taking action to fix that. And I've also noticed that you've just been active on our platform, which tells me that you're thirsty for information. And I say that like a compliment. You're likely very curious based on, it's very simple, right? If I see engagement from someone, that tells me they want information. Very simple. And that's typically a very, good positive indicator of an operator that's trying to get better. I swear we could build like an index on this, like which operators are most, kind of looking for new information to improve. Yeah. And I would like to think that those operators are probably performing pretty well, or are maybe growing quicker or something, but there probably should be. Brett Morgan said this one on my podcast when we were talking about when he came on and he got all those resumes or applicants for DMs. And he said what he liked about those specific applicants that he received at the time was that they were likely very informed and engaged, right, with the industry. And to him, that was a positive indicator of some potential talent. So I digress and ramble a little bit, but that's kind of my the thoughts that I have on my mind here today.
It's funny that you bring that up, because that input that you take in, it's one of the few things in life that you can take in as much as you want, and you're never going to fill your brain. So it's a great addiction to have versus all the other things that don't have a good end in sight. So, you just start cross-referencing all that stuff. And I just love that about learning. You can't fulfill it. Yeah. So kind of like golf, you can never get good at it. I'm not good at it.
Well, so tell me more about that. Before we dive into like business stuff, when it comes to learning, again, you seem like a curious person. Are you into learning anything specific outside of the car business? Any passions or hobbies that, wouldn't be obvious at on the surface?
Boating has been a big thing for forever, just from a hobby standpoint. My family is big into golf, and they're much better at it. My wife and my kids are much better at it than I am. But I try to just play along. But when it would come to a real passion, I think it's human interaction, psychology, understanding how to make leaders, inside and outside of the business. This kind of ends up being a platform for that passion. It ends up being more about how can you maximize whatever you're in. The great thing about having children, you're blessed to be able to have that ability to be a good parent, and make them the next set of leaders. So I'd say that the number one passion.
I sympathize with that. Meaning, this business in many ways is like you said, from what you're telling me, it's sort of a vehicle for you to just execute on this thing that you enjoy, passion, or whatever you want to call it. I would say I felt similarly in the past, where, and I've mentioned this specific example many times on the podcast. People say, "Oh, like in a car business, you love cars," and I'm like, I don't really care about cars. I like the business. I enjoy the building, the system, the creativity, the people. To me, the car is a line on the balance sheet. It's nuts and bolts. It's nothing. And so, hey, people would look at me like, wow, because there's two types of car guys. There's the car guys that love the cars and have a massive collection. And I think there's the car guys like me that don't love the cars as much. You won't hear the word horsepower come out of my mouth very often, but love the business and the transactions and stuff like that. So, anyways, that's
I would be in that same camp as you are.
Okay.
It's not that I don't like cars, but it's not the same as other passions I might have, but absolutely love building the systems, making things simpler. That satisfaction when you have a customer that comes through and said, that was amazing. There's a Chick-fil-A being built next to us right now on one of our old lots. And I'm excited to see how that whole thing comes together, and watching, 75 cars in a drive-through, and, it's all just fun stuff.
Dude, you have to go to the GM of that Chick-fil-A and do some co-branded marketing campains.
We're building a billboard right next to it right now. That's in the drive-through. We're talk about, if you think
tell them or like you bring your Chick-fil-A receipt, you get something, or I mean, who knows what. But that is you could do some really cool stuff there, even with or without their cooperation. Like I said, like even if they're not into that. You bring your fast food receipt that happens to be here. Like we'll do something. I mean, who knows what, but people might feel special. I think that could be cool.
Yeah.
All right. So Jeff, I got to ask you, what is that? There's a little thing behind your head there that I've been trying to read what it says, a little note on the wall or piece of paper. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, those are different core processes within the dealership. So we're an EOS company. Gino Wickman, the founder of EOS. I was lucky to be his last client, before really kind of a transformational guy for me. And he knows how to hit the nerve. He talks about it all the time, and he hit the nerve with me. So we've been running on EOS since 2016. And so we document all of our core processes and refine them, and level 10 meetings. And it's exciting to be connected to that organization, and how it translates to so many other businesses. You can talk to guys that are in other businesses and things that work that are completely out of the car business.
You took over, or your father initially started the dealer group, and there was a transition around 2002, I believe. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So actually around 2000, 2000, I was pulled out of college. My dad was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and he was very concerned. I was actually going in a different direction. I didn't know. I had worked here, and I had worked in dealerships in Kalamazoo when I was at college at Western Michigan, and would work here doing, lube tech, porter, doing some service writing and things like that. But he never pushed me to be in the business because he wanted me to make my own decisions. And I have a younger sister who's special needs, and besides her, it's just me. So when the time came and he started to get worried about being in the business, he pulled me out, and very quickly he had a stroke and was incapacitated from the business. And so, he gave me some good advice, and that was to not be the kind of guy who was a know-it-all, and to listen to his managers that he had in place, and that they knew he trusted them, and they were phenomenal people. I owe so much to them for being so kind to me, to show me the ropes and the way that things needed to be done the right way. So in 2002, I was the dealer principal. Probably a little bit before that, he ultimately passed away in 2010, but it was a rough 8 years of with watching him decline from Parkinson's and being here in the business. And you can kind of imagine those later years of 2010, losing our biggest brand. We were one of the largest Pontiac dealers in the world, and I never had the heart to tell him that the brand went away. But somehow he knew things were bad, even with dementia and the things that go that way. But we grew after that. He always liked to keep things really simple, and I always wanted to had more of a mind for expansion and making things different and better. I definitely got a lot of exposure to my dad growing up. He was a tough guy, and he was very devoted to this business.
Mm-hmm. When you say devoted, what does that mean?
Hands-on as you could possibly be. Didn't have a general manager, bell to bell, work ethic like you wouldn't believe. When he purchased the store in 1980, it was during that recession, and he almost lost it. It was the largest Pontiac dealer in the country at that time, and he was only, I think, maybe 29 or 30 years old, and then almost lost it because he was so leveraged. So, the things that he saw were things that I didn't think that I'd ever have to experience. And then I got to see my own version of it. I remember looking at him one day and saying, "I know why you are the way you are." He pushed that through all of his managers that were there side by side with me. And you could feel that they respected the heck out of him.
This episode is brought to you by Cox Automotive. Omnichannel isn't a buzzword anymore. It's the playbook winning dealers are running. In a world where the buyer journey is more fragmented than ever, the most successful dealers are connecting the dots online, in-store, and everywhere in between. The result? Smoother deals, faster turnarounds, and a serious lift at the bottom line. Nearly 80% of omnichannel dealers are seeing higher close rates, and you can too. One in, the Omnichannel Dealership, a new guide from Cox Automotive, breaks it all down. Click the link in the show notes below to download it now for free.
Mm-hmm. Since that, right? Like who keeps you honest in this business, right? How do you, do you have any personal checks and balances, someone that helps you navigate through? Like, do you have someone like that today?
Well, I'm in EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and that group has helped me a lot during the years. But also being a part of an EOS company, we try to have a flat organization, and that I can be called out for my stuff and the things that I'm supposed to be doing, which is more visionary. And when I'm not following through with my commitments or doing things that I shouldn't be doing, stepping on people's toes and whatnot, I want people to be able to come back to me and say, you're not holding up your end of the bargain. The people that I surround myself with, having entrepreneurs and people that are really driven in business, not typically my own business, I think is also its own form of keeping yourself honest.
That's a good point.
There was definitely a point where I let the humility get out of control the wrong way, and a little bit of a know-it-all, thinking that I had it all figured out and not getting the best out of my, kind of going against my core values in the company.
But how do you personally know when to jump in and when to stay out?
Before, when I wasn't doing that, I think that when I started seeing the silence in the meetings and waiting for everybody to look for my answer, that has now become my cue that I'm talking too much and not getting right down to the real reason behind what's happening, because I'm the know-it-all. I'm the one that's shutting everybody down because I've already got the idea figured out. And I was wrong so many times. And at a certain point, your team starts saying, well, what does it matter anyways? He's just going to do what he wants to do. And that got me in a lot of trouble.
What do you mean by that? Like, what type of trouble? Do you lose good
I
talent, or what actually happened?
Talent issues, not getting down to the right answers, to have the right processes, to have the fixes for the growth that we were looking for. It started to all the answers had to come through me. Everything started filtering through me, and I'm not that smart, and there were things that I would probably stop listening to because I think they got so frustrated with me that just getting angry with me was the only answer, because that's what I put out there. I had to take a step back from it.
Yeah. Now, digging deeper into operations here, your group today is about on a 3-block campus, 120 plus employees, and I would say, from what I can tell, very centralized operations, right? Or at least very close, close proximity. Has that always been the case, or was that something intentional that you did? Can you tell us a little bit about just how the dealership is structured in the group?
Right. So we had a additional Buick Pontiac GMC store about 15 miles north of us. And it was run very similarly to this, completely different market, right on the edge of rural. It was one of the victims of the 2008 shutdowns of dealerships during that time. And we actually were doing 4-to-1 used. And even after the franchise was taken away, we continued to be a huge used car presence. We were the number one GM certified used dealer in the state of Michigan. We were doing a lot of, when Velocity first came as a used car term, we were all in on that, believing that was the answer to the store, and continued on that way. But I never felt like I had the right level of control to be able to grow it with the drive back and forth. And I was too young too, probably. I didn't have another, right-hand person at that time that could be, our eyes and ears and be able to take those core values and bring them up there. So after that, we purchased the Stellantis dealer next door to us, and it was a store that had been here for a long time with a reputation that was less than stellar, kind of a rack 'em and stack 'em subprime place that had developed a bad reputation. So we looked at it and said, this is the right place for us to expand, because it's literally right next door. Our name is a well-known brand here, and it also fills in the blank for, the high volume of Pontiac that we were doing before.
Yeah. And then what percentage of your business today would you say is subprime? You mentioned your used to new ratio, but I'm just curious, what are you doing subprime today at your stores?
Subprime today is 27% right now.
Oh, wow. That's
as of yesterday's GM financial report.
Mm-hmm. Are you tell what's driving today the growth of your business? Before we talk about numbers and store counts, where are you seeing growth on the P&L?
Used cars, subprime, fixed ops. New cars is very limited for us right now, inventory wise. I believe that's probably holding us back by 50% of our new car volume right now. We sold off the Stellantis store in March, because of all of the things going on with the brand and in Metro Detroit. Yes. If you can imagine what was happening in the rest of the country with Stellantis, in Metro Detroit, I would say triple the problems, in Metro Detroit. We went from, because of employee and leasing, when you cut those programs down to the bone, it changed the entire dynamic of the market. And we're inherently over-dealered in Stellantis in Metro Detroit. We went from probably a 250 unit a month store, down to about 40 or 50 really quickly, with all of the structure of a 250 unit store. Stellantis actually took a lot of their local UAW employees and put them in 1-year employee leases that were done through a fleet company and then delivered through the dealerships. We did 1,000 of them in a 5-month period with absolutely no warning. Literally, the cars started showing up, the phone started to ring, and at a certain point, we threw our hands up, because that was also a big portion of our used car market are now in these employee leases, 1-year leases, unlimited mileage, insurance coverage included it. So it really has devastated the Stellantis dealers in Metro Detroit. It's the epicenter. So I never wanted to give up a store, but it was the biggest, the biggest thing holding us back from our growth was that store.
What do you mean by that? Like, why was that specific store? Was it financially that it was just losing money and it was a fragmented business?
It became that. For a long time, it was doing very well financially. And then when this went, after this fork in the road happened, it became devastating losses. We were, muscling our way through it in every which way that we could. But, in Metro Detroit, you cannot just turn on a used car switch like a normal market. The domestics are at 80+% lease penetration. So some cars you look at here and you say, well, that's a great used car to have. Well, the payment might be radically lower on a new lease that might be even from another OEM. So it's one of the few markets where Toyota stores don't really do that well. It's, I have to say, the most unique market in the country from that perspective.
Explain that to me, though. When you say you can't just turn on the used car spigot, are you simply saying that the substitute, in this case, affordable leases, are so competitive?
Absolutely. Yeah. For a long time, for instance, Sierra leases right now, with zero do-it signing are $300 something a month, all taxes included. You're looking at a, $60,000 or $58,000 truck, crew cab, It's just hard to compete against that.
This episode is brought to you by Podium. Fast response times aren't just a nice to have, they're your competitive edge. With Podium's AI BDC, dealerships are seeing an 80% increase in after-hours appointments by handling leads 24/7. This conversational AI acts like your best sales rep, booking test drives, answering questions, and connecting with your customers instantly, even on nights and weekends. Plus, AI allows your team to focus on what matters most, closing deals. Don't let leads slip through the cracks. Turn interest into sales day or night with Podium. Learn more by texting CDG to 385-293-3461. That's CDG to 385-293-3461, or click the link in the show notes below.
I think you touch on an important point of knowing your market, because I think in another market, what you're saying right now, there has to be some dealers listening saying, "Oh, that's like foreign to me," or that you just wouldn't be the case in our market for, maybe lower lease penetration, or maybe Stellantis is not over dealered in some market there. I understand the perspective you're coming from. I do want to ask you another question on the decision to divest the store.
Yeah.
How many franchises do you have today?
We're just Buick GMC right now.
Back to GMC.
Back to original, which was originally Pontiac Buick GMC.
I had to imagine you had a decent amount of shared services across the multiple franchises. Was the drag on the business really stemming from like overhead, or was there a way that you could have salvaged that store and maybe held on for longer? Like, if we just do like a post-mortem now and say, okay, you got rid of the store for the reason that it was losing lots of money, but were there other options that you could have taken before divesting, or was it not just numbers? Like, was there other reasons you chose to get out of that store for your own personal reasons or something?
Well, from the standpoint of the Ray Laethem brand, and this is where I don't know how much I want to talk about this, puncturing myself with Stellantis. The way that the brand felt about treating customers was radically different than the way that we treat customers. And to keep our reputation and do the things that we needed to do, I got to say, OC, at some point I thought, do I change the name of the dealership, not even say that it's mine, and keep it going? And that was something that was thought of and could have been viable.
Okay.
But that doesn't get us where we need to get as far as where we're looking to be from a growth standpoint. So,
yeah, I mean, it sounds like you had cultural differences there as well.
Yes, absolutely. You couldn't run it the way that we want to run a store.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your 20% checklist that I read about? You have this 20% checklist, which you say, Pareto, it runs 80% of your store's results. What is this 20% checklist?
We look at every position and look at the 20% of things that you need to do on each customer interaction or each process that you have that allows you to not think about the basics because, the friend of mine that helped me with the business, Leo Ghibli, who's kind of considered a master of the basics from Ethos, talks about those basic checklist items from a general manager's daily checklist to a service advisor, to a salesperson, to an F&I. And if you get those things done, it allows you to be the person that you want to be. It allows you to have a personality because you've got those things covered. You're not chasing your tail on things that should already just be automatic. So read a great book called The Checklist Manifesto. I don't know if you've ever read it. And it was actually based here in Detroit at Detroit Receiving Hospital, which had the worst hospital infections in the world. And they put checklists into place and they fixed it. And they've brought that standard across the whole country. Pilots use them. And they have the ego sometimes gets in the way of that checklist because you always think, I already know this. I know what I'm supposed to do. But at a certain point, we're human. But I think the checklists allow us to be human for the best parts of being human.
Got it. So you have these checklists for every single position. And
yes.
What's on the checklist? Like for like a technician or a salesperson, like what am I seeing on these things?
In the case of a salesperson, it starts with a customer needs analysis, a base statement of going over, why we're here, what we do, how we do business, a little bit about the store, going through those things, asking people what they like about their existing car. And, it's funny when I started following that myself on, talking to people that I know, that people open up and, checklists on deal jackets, making sure that, people are signing off and initialing on all the things that come through. And, the difference is a knowing problem versus a doing problem.
Yeah. No, the deal jacket one is that's a great process.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the only thing that I look for when we have a problem and we look at the deal and I say, was the deal checklist checked off? And if it was checked off and we didn't do it, then we've got a doing problem, not a knowing problem. So, we're always trying to find a way to solve those little problems that really grind us down and don't allow us to be the best that we can be.
Yeah. Do you think that doing stuff like that is symptomatic of missing tech in a dealership or, kind of just stronger processes? I always think about these things whenever someone, if you have to do something, right, as part of a process, are there parts of that process that could just be automated? And maybe if you mentioned with a salesperson doing like a needs analysis and whatnot, if the tool, the tech, the CRM I'm using had this flow built for, or more structured in a certain way where there was no checklist, rather my process embedded what needed to be done properly. Maybe I'm like oversimplifying it, or I'm just curious like how you think about that. At what point are we putting too much additional process that really is just covering up tech or other things that should be changed or fixed or done better?
I feel like they're sort of one and the same thing. We implemented Numa in the service lane, I don't know, almost maybe a week after you guys talked about it on the podcast. And we had a thing called the Green Book checklist that every service advisor went through, and it had 8 or 9 items. But in the middle of it, it had customer update checklist. And, it was probably one of the most hated things by advisors that you wrote down a quick note that you texted or and just a quick note about what you did and when you did it so that we could look back and say, hey, we did it at 12 o'clock. We did it at 3 o'clock. We did it on day 21 while they're waiting on a transmission, whatever it might be. But Numa, in a lot of ways, took out the core of that because we can now see that is our checklist. Are we going through and looking, and did we clear the Numa sheet? Because it's become, and my old service director who retired came back and he says, it's an automated green book. I love it. So, I guess the answer to my answer
there you go.
Is, yes, they can. I would love to be able to build that. We've been playing around a lot with Chat GPT, trying to see if we can build different processes and automate them. But I've also been down a big wormhole of building a digital retailing tool in 2016, way too ahead of its time, and spent way too much money trying to do that. So anytime I think down that tech road, I start to get the the hair on the back of my neck starts standing up again, because I know that that's not my.
So what's your lesson there? What's your lesson there for other people listening when it comes to new technology, trying things? What's your, having been through the digital retailing saga, it seems that you've kind of, the pendulum has sort of swung back. Not to say that digital retailing is going anywhere, but it's sort of evolving and morphing into more of an omnichannel experience. What's your advice to any dealers who are in that process right now, whether it be exploring new technology or thinking about, how to evolve their dealership?
Would never try to develop it myself ever again. Even though the product we actually developed works really well, it still lives on a server. And I look at it and say, that was really good. And we had a lot of people that were excited around it, but then we sit here with this thing in a box, and then, well, now you need a whole culture change to even start to use it. Was a really short-sighted thing from my standpoint. I mean, I thought this is easy, but the implementation of it, very difficult. And I think the nice thing about a lot of these new technologies and having short timeframes and not having to commit for years of something, it's nice to be able to experiment with some of these. Like Numa, it was an experiment. And it worked, and we love it. And we've had other things that haven't worked so well, and we got out pretty quickly. What hasn't worked well for you? And you don't have to call someone out unless you want to, but what hasn't worked well for you? We've had a few AI tools with lead response and things like that were not producing the kind of answers that we wanted, and we weren't able to interact with it the way that we wanted to. We're pretty happy with what we're doing right now with the current AI tool, but we had a lot of garbage was going out that really discouraged the whole team. Even though it was better than us not answering at all, it was still harming our reputation because it didn't give the right experience.
So I want you to tell me about, I know one of the notes that I read about you was 2 years ago. You had this sort of, come to Jesus moment where you said, wait, we are not living to our core values. And, or specifically a core value.
Specifically me.
So pride in your team. You really had this wake up moment, right? Can you just tell us like what was that like for you? How did you actually make change? I think we can sit all day and pontificate about what we can do better and whatnot, but when it comes down to the brass tacks of making change, it's always the hardest part. What was that like for you?
The part for me, the pride of our team, it's I wasn't sharing credit enough. I wasn't digging into the team enough. My the best answer wasn't winning because I wasn't listening for it. Really, it was an ego problem. And that really, again, got me into trouble. You go back to the Stellantis store. I don't know. Maybe I could have made it work better if those things in the past hadn't been there. I look at how, I was completely blind to the fact. I thought it was a great guy, but I was, maybe the smiling guy and kept the mood light and whatnot, but underneath, I wasn't getting the best out of my team. And, I'm sure that they were sick of me in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
What's the idea this week, Jeff? What are we going to try this week? Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Nomad Content Studio. Many dealerships are still getting social media completely wrong. They either ignore it, post inventory photos, or hand it off to someone on staff with no strategy. Meanwhile, the dealership down the street is racking up millions of views and turning those views into real car sales. That's where Nomad Content Studio comes in. They're the team behind the dealers you actually see online. Their system trains a videographer, tells you exactly what, who, and how to film, then storyboards, clips, the raw footage, and post the content daily across all your social platforms. They literally do it all for you. They're the same team behind some of the top dealerships and biggest automotive influencers today. I believe in them so much that I even personally invested in them. If you want your dealership to be next, head to trynomad.co. That's trynomad.co to book a call, or click the link in the show notes below.
At any point, do you involve your family as you make these decisions and sit at the dinner table? I'm curious to know if, what that's like and if these conversations come up with your immediate family.
Well, I actually have to start with my mom. So my mom started working here.
No way.
When I was born in 1975, she was She was a trainer for Blue Cross Health Systems. And when I was born, she didn't work anymore. And at some point, she's been taking care of my sister for 45 years. And at some point, I asked her to come here with help in the office and different things. And she loves actually packaging up some of these processes. She loves being a second set of eyes. Probably the main thing that she works on right now, we have a pretty large courtesy transportation fleet, like, 60, 70 cars. And she is on everybody that those cars are pulled out at 2,100 miles. What's going on with this? What's going on with that? And kind of a jack of all trades. And it's really great to have her here, because it's mutually beneficial. So as far as bringing it up at home, I don't know if I bring it up that much at home. I think where home intertwines is the lessons that we learn from, whether it be from the EOS, whether it be from the books that are read that are, building leaders. And I think a lot of the maybe bringing the humility home has helped quite a bit lately. I think that's helping quite a bit. But the business and home have been distinctly separate. My kids have done some work here, and they've learned a little bit, but I'm definitely not pushing them in any direction. I guess apples don't fall far from the trees the way my dad felt when I was the age. So, yeah.
That's shout out mom. I mean, I've heard of spouses working in the business, but mom, I love to hear that. And what about the brand? Just a little bit higher level. I'm curious to take your take on, where GM is at today, the future. I read some of your comments on social. I think you had plugged the Buick Encore. You're saying that they're leasing well. I'm curious to know, what's your just general sentiment today on where GM is at?
I'm very, very happy with them as a partnership. It's, our original partnership. I feel a strong sense of being lockstep with respect to the way we treat customers. When we have problems, having the ability to have those courtesy cars, stepping up on the 6.2 issue that was going on. We saw a lot of Yukon Denali's here. I mean, it's a great market for that, and we had a lot of people that were affected by it, and we quickly got through it, and I felt like we were getting through it together. Buick has, I think I had mentioned before.
And just for clarity, you're referring to the massive recall that GM issued on the 6.2 liter engines, which affected 2021 through 24 models, which hundreds of thousands of vehicles.
Yes. Loss of propulsion in them, and some getting towed in, and but they really, you looked at it as like, how are they ever going to deal with this? And I felt great about the way that they attacked it with hand in hand with us. A lot of podcasts going back and forth about here's what we're thinking here, making special exemptions on renting vehicles outside of the CTP channel. A lot of goodwill that was being put out. So,
have you had capacity to bring those vehicles into the shop for warranty work?
Yes, we've had the capacity to do it. A lot of times we were waiting on the part itself, but the switching out of the engines doesn't take, it can be done in a day, which is nice. And a full engine replacement is from a car guy, that's a pretty solid way to do it, and not rebuilding or doing things like that. So, as far as Buick goes, this is the largest Buick market in the country. It has taken over for a fair amount of the models that have left, whether it be from Stellantis, from Ford, from other GM models. It is soaked up a lot of the market, and we're happy to have it. We've been a little worried about the tariffs with 3 of the 4 cars being made overseas, but that hasn't had an effect yet. Other than we're a little short on supply right now. I would say that our biggest challenge is not having enough cars. So,
and you're referring to new cars here, right?
New cars, yes, which in turn has affected us having used cars. And like I mentioned before, in this market, you cannot have an overpriced used car. It is not going to work.
Would you say, but is that part of the reason why you lean into subprime? Or is that like mutually exclusive? You just have that market?
Yes. So we lead into subprime. We have a good subprime market around us. We have, we are the only Buick GMC dealer in the city of Detroit. We're on the far east side, near Grosse Pointe, which is a very wealthy community. So we've got a real mix here of credit scores and Buick has been a great price point too. When you look at the Invista, I mean, coming in mid $20,000 for, so many people think it's, a BMW X car or things like that. What is that car? And it's really the minute the ST version comes in, they're gone. So we're buying them from wherever we can. We've been known to pay, sticker for them just to have them in our market to be able to grow our Buick volume.
Yeah, no,
but
they definitely
that is a key to used cars for us.
Buick has come a long way. They their brand, I think, in general, and just the aesthetic of the vehicle is definitely, like you said yourself, right? They really
absolutely
tremendous leaps forward. So I can't say I'm surprised to hear that, especially you being in the heart of Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, Jeff, before we wrap up, I'm curious to know, like, what's next for you and the group? Do you think you're going to become, go back into acquisition mode? You let go of the Stellantis store, like, is that a plan, or are we talking more of kind of same store growth? What's your plan for the future of Ray Laethem Group?
So we are actively looking for stores right now. We are not necessarily right here, and I know that flies in the face of what I talked about earlier. We like Ohio, we like Indiana, close enough store. Would love to have Chevy in our market here, Ford in our market here, Toyota, of course, and Honda. Those would be fantastic. We are constantly looking, and I've got some other friends in the business that we're looking to collaborate with as well. So it's okay. So that's
so we're looking at potential partnerships here, a little joint ventures.
Joint venture or on our own. We want to have the right store and that works for us, that works for our brands, and fills in the blanks, and also allows us to. The beauty of having more stores, it allows you to make more leaders who can make more leaders. And, that's my why at the end of the day. That's it. Leaders who can make leaders who can make leaders. And if we're doing that, everything else will fall into place.
Well said. Well, it seems like you're doing a great job, and definitely one of the most thoughtful operators I've spoken with. It seems like you're really thinking and doing your best to learn and, pick up wherever you can, gems, nuances that you can implement. Love that. I think it's just a great way for you to kind of keep your open mind and see, what's next and what can we do better. So, I wish you best of luck, man. You seem like you're on a really good path.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a real pleasure talking to you.
Awesome, Jeff. Thanks so much for coming on. It's truly a lot of fun. All right. Hope you enjoyed that episode. Please give the podcast a rating, consider subscribing to the show, and check the show notes for links to what we talked about. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you guys next time.